Welcome to the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. Unscripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel. I'm your host, Rosabel Zohfeld, and today we have an incredibly inspiring guest with us, Rebecca Engle. Rebecca, she is a passionate advocate for neurodivergence, having navigated her own journey through delayed speech and the challenges of traditional classroom environments. She's written the book, A Step Into My Shoes. It is a key member of the Autism Community Network's advisory board. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here. Again, let's start by hearing about your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your early experiences with autism and special education?
Sure. So I am autistic, and I was diagnosed at the age of 3. And I was non-speaking until the age of 4. I only said 22 words at the age of 5. I was once told by doctors that I would never be able to do anything you could train a monkey to do. I was also told that I would not succeed independently. I've spent my whole entire life proving those people wrong. And I navigate around people's negative comments, and I was on an IEP until 5th grade, and going through that process I was told that I no longer qualified after 5th grade because I had accomplished my speech issue that I was on an IEP for, and was taken from a self-contained classroom at the age of 5 into a general ed classroom for kinder through 5th grade, and then was honors the rest of my life. Because of that, I had no support, nothing to keep me safe in school, and I ran into harmful practices that were used against me. And yeah.
That is a lot to go through at early age, right?
Yes.
And so it seems like the traditional classroom environment didn't quite work for you, right?
No.
Tell me a little bit. I know you touched on some of the challenges, but tell me a little bit more about that and what did you do to overcome those?
Yeah, so I had to kind of mask, and what that means is I had to hide a lot of my problems. And many classrooms rely on systems that prioritize the quiet sitting, the eye contact, and on task, quote unquote, behaviors over the authentic engagement, which creates environments where masking is rewarded and natural behaviors like stimming or using alternative communications are suppressed. Body language is always seen as a negative, no matter how it is performed. Connection is then replaced by control. And then there was always that suppression of my autonomy and voice. I was never really allowed to speak. Even now, anytime I'm in an educational type setting and I take over, they immediately say that I'm not allowed to speak and that I'm not allowed to have a voice in the room.
Why? What do you think is that?
Well, I think I know a lot about certain topics, and certain topics are my special interest. And when those topics are my special interest, I dive in and I want to share what I know because it's in my heart. And a lot of the time they don't want that extra conversation, or they want other people to contribute equally to me. But of course, if it's my special interest, I've done a lot more research than those other people. And so I think it's just a lot of wanting to have that shared conversation. And with me, I kind of dive in and immediately take over.
And in a way, I have an idea what you're talking about. I feel like I had some of that when I was a little kid. But in general, I think, your story is a testament to resiliency. If you wouldn't told me what you told me as you presented yourself, that you couldn't speak, I hear you now. I would have never known that you had to deal with all of those things. Now, tell me about that role in advocacy play in your personal growth, and how did you help navigate that educational system?
Yeah, so my mother was a big believer in me and always taught me how to speak up for myself. and ask for what I need. Now I feel like my role in advocacy is both personal and powerful. I feel like as an autistic woman who was once non-speaking, underestimated, and told I would never achieve more than the basic functioning, I have transformed a lot of those narratives into my lifelong mission, which is to dismantle ableist systems, reimagine education, amplify the voices of those who have been silenced. And, my advocacy didn't begin in a boardroom or on stage. It began in classrooms that were never built for me. It taught me to navigate a world where my masking was rewarded and my stimming was discouraged. And I didn't realize how much my stimming was discouraged until I had an interaction at the bus stop as a little girl. I was in middle school and a kid came up to me and said, "Why do you no longer flap like a bird?" And he didn't mean it offensive. He just genuinely was curious. Like, I flapped like a bird all the time, all throughout elementary school. And I did like this wing thing. And he didn't mean it insulting. He genuinely was just clueless on why I did it. I mean, we were 14, 13, like, valid question. And I didn't realize how bad my masking was until I had that question. I was like, wait, because stimming, obviously, we don't recognize how many times we do it. And when we do it, we only recognize the dysregulation. And I was like, wow. But going back on topic, I would go into rooms talking about how I knit and how it calmed me down and stopped me from stimming as a businesswoman. And people were like, you need to write a book. You need to share your story. You need to talk about it. You need to do this. Or, someone would tell me about their autistic kiddo and ask me advice and questions. And I was like, wait, I can provide this. I remember sitting on a playground with an ALE kiddo, which is a self-contained setting, when I was a little girl. We were out at recess at the same time, the Gen A class and them. And I was sitting with the ALE teacher and just providing her advice about me. And I was like 9. I was in the 4th grade and I was so excited to give this ALE teacher advice on this child who was, in that alternative setting. And I was pushing this alternative special education student on a swing. And it was the most rewarding moment of my elementary years. And I don't talk about that much, but I feel like that is the day my advocacy began and my I want to change these lives began. And then in college and high school, I was given the opportunity to step into the classroom.
Absolutely. Now, I understand that a central part of your message is embracing neurodivergence, right? And for many people, there's a lot of misunderstanding around what it means to be neurodivergent.
Mhm.
How can we better support or understand neurodivergent individuals?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of ways someone can be neurodivergent. And I think understanding how they're neurodivergent is the first step in being able to work with them. I feel like a lot of the time in theory, people are like, they're autistic, they're neurodivergent. It's not about fixing their behaviors or enforcing compliance, but creating environments where those people feel safe. You can be neurodivergent simply because of ADHD or because of other things, a learning disability in reading. There's tons of ways to be neurodivergent. And first, there should always be pursuing competence. Assume that the neurodivergent people you're working with are capable, even if they communicate or process the world differently than us. We need to stop equating the speech, the eye contact, or the stillness with understanding. And then the relationship over regulation. Right now in our school systems and across the world, we immediately say, if you do what I tell you to do, here's an incentivized reward. And that's a control thing, right? Even in our work environments, if you get the best scores, we'll pay you more. If you do this, we'll give you more. And connection is more powerful than control with us. We need that trust building. We need co-regulation. We need emotional safety that allows us to thrive. When you start throwing in the pay raises, the clip charts, the token systems, whatever age you're at, we are suppressing who we are to meet your expectations. And we will mostly suppress who we are to meet expectations. And then respecting sensory needs without judgment. There's, the flapping, the pacing, the humming, the chewing, avoiding eye contact, needing headphones, things like that. These aren't distractions. They're regulation tools. And the second you start calling them toys is the second those students, the second the adults, a regulation tool as a toy. If we introduce fidgets and things in our schools immediately as regulation tools, I bet you kids wouldn't navigate for them as toys immediately. And I feel like we lack that right now. And then just honoring all forms of communication. Speech isn't the only way people can talk. And then celebrating autonomy over compliance. And then, of course, redefining what success looks like.
Indeed, I believe. Wow, those are some powerful points that you got there. Now, let's talk about your book. I mean, and I know, so Step Into My Shoes, is that your first book?
Yeah.
Okay. And what inspired you to write it? I mean, what can readers expect to take away from your story in the book?
So, uh, the storyline of the book is following through, with the special ed student throughout a school day. And I feel like at the end of it, you're supposed to walk away with the understanding of going through a special ed life and going through the experiences that we have. And I feel like a lot of people, even that don't have special needs, have read it and been like, wow, I can relate this part to my life. And I think that connection, and being able to realize that neurotypicals and neurodivergent people have a lot more in common than there really is, and how they use those tools to actually help them, is really what I want people to walk away from.
Awesome. And then so you got a new book coming up? Or are you
Yes.
working on it, or are you already?
So it's out for pre-order. It's written. It just isn't put out yet. So May 1st, it will drop.
Are you allowed to say the title of it?
Yeah.
What
It's
is it called?
Tangled and Silent Norms.
Okay. How is that book different from the previous one?
Yeah, so
Or
this
how?
one is more geared towards adults. I mean, kids can read it. It's not inappropriate or anything. There's no explicit content. But the first 10 chapters, it's about 80 pages, the book. The first 10 chapters, which some are only 2 pages, some are like 8. It's a shorter book, is very research based. And it isn't I didn't do like case studies and really particular scenes. I kind of just did that bullet type, this is wrong and how type research, because I really want people to read my book and kind of have a background of basics so they can go into further research if they choose to. It's guided towards people who don't have necessarily interest in educational policy or psychology, but kind of just want to understand their child or understand their students' needs in a basic way.
So,
And
mhm. No, I was going to
chapter.
ask it because I think you're a teacher, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you teach special ed?
Yes.
Oh, wow. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been teaching 3rd through 5th grade for a year. And then my first experience with special ed was in the daycare pre-K setting for about 3.
Wow. And you are also part of the Autism Community Network's advisory board.
Yes.
So tell me, what does this role involve and how does it align with your advocacy goals?
Yeah, sure. So this group is absolutely amazing. They're a local group and they have a lot of the same ideas and beliefs that I hold about the autism community. And the group has therapists and summer camps and things for kiddos with autism in the local area. And I think for me, what I love about it is just kind of being able to give my background and belief to the community. I just accepted this role about a month ago. I'm on what they call the Experts by Experience board. So the reason it's called the Experts by Experience is because everyone on it has autism or is autistic. And so all of us have lived in the shoes of the kids that are using this facility. And so we kind of advise them on what we want as autistic people.
Pretty good. Pretty neat, huh?
Yeah.
Now, so how do you see the future of special education evolving? I mean, there's some improvements that perhaps, you would like to see for neurodivergent individuals, both, I'll say, in education and workplace.
Yeah, I really wish I could say there was. I feel like with the recent removal of the Department of Ed and with a lot of the policy issues going on, I feel like we're all a little nervous about what will change. But regardless of what's going on, I feel like the individuals themselves have to change and grow in order for the system to change and grow. And right now we are at a federal, state level, no matter where you live, because this is actually controlled at the federal level. We're using a system called positive behavioral intervention support. And so the idea is we will have you earn your sensory regulation helpers to achieve what we want you to get done, right? So if you do 20 questions on this math problem, we'll give you a fidget. If you do 20 questions on this, we will give you candy. And that system causes us to mask until we get to our regulation tool. And then by the time we get to our regulation tool, we're way more overstimulated and we need it way longer. And then they control how long we have it. if you appropriately teach how to use a fidget, for example, like this is one of my students' favorites for those who are watching it with video. The idea is that I can do this while holding a pencil, right? And there's a failure to understand that and a failure to teach that from a young age. So immediately when kids see a fidget for the first time to regulate, they do this. And when a child does that, it takes away from their work. So we need to change the mindset, and we need to teach the mindset in order for these kids to pick them up.
Wow. And what would you say it was, in your personal story, what would you, again, said that helped you overcome your most difficult challenges, like something in particular?
Yeah, I think what helped me overcome my needs was having family support. And every once in a while, especially in middle school and high school, I had a teacher who cared. I wasn't on paperwork at this point in my life, but I would have that one teacher that I could just rant to about how my sensory needs bothered me that day, or the APD, auditory processing disorder, bothered me that day, or one teacher that just didn't get it. And I would be able to have that safe space to kind of release the autism, as I call it. And having that place is really what helped me throughout school. Had I not had that one teacher or two teachers, I think I would have been a complete disaster. In my high school years, it was my business teacher and my 7th grade, 12th grade mixed. I did them both at the same time. History teacher. And my middle school years, it was my 6th grade English teacher and my school librarian.
So, how old were you when you were diagnosed with autism?
3.
3? Wow, that's
And
pretty
then,
early.
yes, I was re-diagnosed at 22.
Why was that?
So when I was diagnosed with pervasive mental disorders, sensory processing disorder, speech apraxia, auditory processing disorder. You get the gist. I could keep going. And that was because autism had a stigma around it. So autism was specifically for kids who were very, very behind and very, very delayed. And the idea of them ever achieving anything was completely out of question. And that is now diagnosed as autism level 3. And that is high support needs. Like they need someone following them around all the time. And so my parents did not want that stigma on me, because there was a stigma on autism level 3 at the time. Those are those students that you see in that self-contained setting for the rest of their lives. And that's what they wanted to diagnose me with. And my parents were like, no way, we don't see that in her. And so they diagnosed me with what is now called autism level 1. But at the time, and when I was diagnosed, it was just a bunch of labels. It was like 27 different names in one diagnosis that we use now. So I went back to get a re-diagnosis a year ago because I wanted I wanted it to be easier to say, right? Because I didn't want to classify myself as autistic without properly having the label autism. While those things now fall on the autism spectrum, I felt wrong just saying I'm autistic when I didn't have the exact medical label, and I just had 12 things that fall under the autism spectrum.
Wow. So, I don't remember if perhaps I asked you this earlier. What are some misconceptions around autism?
There are a ton. I
But the
feel
most
like
common.
Yeah, I feel like number one is that it's a mental disability. I hear that a lot. I don't care about your mental disability. Don't talk about your mental disability. It's a neurotype, so stop. The difference is a mental disability affects your mental well-being, aka your mood, your emotion. Autism affects your regulation and your processing. So can that affect your mood? Sure. Is it common that someone with autism also has anxiety and depression? Sure. But to say it as a mental disability? Yeah, no. And then there's also the idea that like the only type of autism is that level 3 autism. There's also the talk around Asperger, which if you know the story, we no longer use the term Asperger because it was that level 1 autism that we have now. It was politically incorrect because the person that it was named after, Asperger, was very politically incorrect.
So, what advice would you give to neurodivergent individuals who are
Yeah.
currently facing challenges?
Yeah.
particularly in terms of education and societal expectations?
Yeah, I think I would say you need to advocate for yourself. You know what you need best. You need to be able to do that, and I think without being able to do that, any advice I give will fail you because all of this comes down to being able to speak for yourself and being able to speak up. I mean, every time I hop in a podcast, I'm actively fidgeting. That's the best part. I think being able to know what you need and being able to just not what people think is key.
And so, in your personal case or in your personal circumstances, what do you think is the hardest thing, presently to kind of that you're still perhaps working with?
There's a lot of ableism, and I feel like people who are at my level of support need are experiencing it the most because I feel like a lot of the time I get told you're not autistic, that's a lie, you're using it as an excuse, you've never actually experienced that.
Who
And
tells you that?
tons of people.
People that don't know what you. What's the what are they basing their comments on?
There's people who have a base of what autism is and they use the old DSM and they're like, well, you accomplished this, so this doesn't equate. Um, like I've been told that because I was top of my college class, I am not autistic. Because I graduated high school, I am not autistic. Like it's absolutely insane. Like first of all, they had to pass me in high school if I turned in my work because of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which was passed by Obama. Originally, No Child Left Behind. Like they legally could not say you're autistic, you don't get to graduate. Like what? And I was top of my college class because there was only 9 of us. It was pretty hard to be bottom of that. I mean, I would have had to have like academic probation, which just doing my work and passing classes would have gotten me top of my college class. And so I feel like there's a lot of silly stuff like that, that it's like, you've done this, so this doesn't apply to you.
A lot of stigma.
Yes.
Wow, that is. And what are some practical steps that we, perhaps as a society, can take to better celebrate? Now, and before I even go there, I want to please correct me. Am I saying it right? Is it okay to talk about neurodivergence? Okay. But how can we celebrate it? Not just accept it, but truly embrace it.
So I feel like you can move beyond the awareness and the accommodation and into affirmation. So you need to honor our brilliance, creativity, resilience, and the unique ways we experience and contribute to our world. So listening to our communication in whatever form it is, spoken, typed, scripted, drawn, or silent, making our space for stimming, resting, and sensory regulation, welcoming our need for the repetition, patterns, movements, or structure without treating it like it's a problem. Offering choices instead of giving us compliance. We're not dogs, so we don't need a treat. And then respecting the autonomy and honoring our identity. Celebration means saying things like, you don't have to mask to be worthy. You are not too much and you belong here, but actually doing those things, right? Including us in the topic. Don't just talk about it, but be about it.
Absolutely. And then what is a message that you hope that our listeners can walk away with from today's conversation?
So my known quote is, don't let people peel your stickers off. I see human beings as Rubik's cubes, and you can peel the stickers off and put them back on and solve the puzzle very, very quickly. Or you can take your time and figure out the puzzle, and life is about figuring out that puzzle.
Very good. Where can our listeners find your work and connect with you?
You can connect with me on Instagram at Stitches Stanzas. It's one big blump. Or RE02.20, also on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Rebecca Engle, my name, and then you can find me on Facebook at Becca Engle, which is my name without the RE.
Awesome. Do you have any upcoming projects that you want to share?
I do. So this summer, I'll be speaking at a large conference called the Hustle and Socialize Conference about neurodivergence in business. And then June 20th, I'll be speaking downtown Austin, virtually and in person, about autism and incentives and how we can create classroom environments that help with autistic children. So yeah.
That is awesome. Is there anything else I have not asked you that perhaps you were like, okay, I'll really want to?
No, I don't
No,
think so.
it's pretty.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations and
Thank
all
you.
this, you know, these achievements for sure that you've had. I mean, it's remarkable. And so you have that book that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to admit, I haven't been able to read your book, your first one, but it sounds, the title itself, it sounds very, very interesting. In My Shoes. Is that what it's called? In My Shoes?
Step
Or
into
in
my
your
shoes.
shoes? A step in my shoes. Very good. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for what you do, in advocating for, individuals with autism.
Yeah.
And then I just want to thank each one of our followers, listeners. Please subscribe to the Life Unscripted podcast. And again, you can follow Rebecca Engle on social media posts. And do you have a website by any chance?
I don't yet.
Okay. All right. It's fair enough. Okay. But they can definitely reach you out either Facebook, Instagram.
Yes.
And then for sure. And where can they find your book, by the way?
Amazon.
Amazon. All right. Yes. Amazon is that. And do you have an audiobook? Is it
I
an
do
audiobook?
not yet.
Hey, you could probably even read it, like narrate it yourself or something like that. Well, Rebecca, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing, your story with us.
Yeah.
And maybe one day you can come back here and tell us a little bit more, and see how things are going. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.